All right, so I just want to ask a question here, and I'll lay it out to you. This is not anything that's immediate. It's not anything that you look at and go, oh, well, it's got to get done right now. But it is interesting considering some of the commentary, some of the quotes from the people in Green Bay. And by people in Green Bay, I talk about the guy who's now going to be running the show there, soon-to-be team president Ed Policy, who spoke about his philosophy on contract extensions for head coaches. And basically, to sum it up, he looked at Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst, who have 2 years left on their deal, and said, yeah, we're not quite ready to give them the contract extension yet, but I would say not all the time. I'm generally opposed to guys going into a lame duck situation. Well, if that's the case, then this is a big year. Because if you don't want anybody going into a lame duck situation, then what you're saying is this conversation next year is a bigger deal because I'd like to get that done before they go into the final year of their contracts. And I'm going to ask the question, which I think maybe people listening in Wisconsin right now are probably kind of wondering as well, too. What else would Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst need to do to garner that extension? Because if you ask me, they've been fantastic, especially over the past few years. And this has not been an easy transition for them. You walked away from Rodgers after being criticized for the move to go out and draft Jordan Love. You've gone to NFC title games. You've been to the playoffs. As far as record-wise, there's only 3 teams who have had a better record since Matt LaFleur has taken over there in the NFL. That would be the Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs. And all of those teams are AFC teams. So in the NFC alone, the Packers have had the best record since Matt LaFleur got there. And yet Ed Policy is sitting there talking about, well, we'd like to see maybe a little bit more from them. If what he's saying is true, that I don't want them going into a lame duck situation, I'm just not ready to give them a contract yet. Why wouldn't you? Why would you even let this be a conversation next year? Because even if they did have a down year, for whatever reason, I still think they've warranted a contract extension, both of those guys.
I think it's a valid question, and it's a valid angle to take on the situation. I think that you're right. And looking at it from the standpoint of they have gotten results with being in the positions that they've been in, I think there are generally specific situations where certain things apply. Like you used the term lame duck coach or even lame duck, GM. I don't think that they're lame ducks if they don't get the extension. I think that it becomes more pressure on the person that didn't make that decision. You know what I mean? Like that you're now talking about, this is not an owner ran organization. It's owned by the fans. And so even Policy has people that he has to answer to. I believe there's a board or whatever it is that, he has to answer to. I think this puts more pressure on the decision makers who do the contract extensions or do the new contracts, whatever it is that how they do it. And I think that becomes the main conversation. And so while you'll say, well, if he's saying he wants to see more, then I just take it at face value, Jonas. He wants to see more. And whatever, it could be in context, it could be I want to see more as in just more games being played. It might not just be I want to see more as in I need to see them win a Super Bowl. It just might be I just want to see more before I make the decision, the final decision. It could be basing the value, not so much am I going to do the contract. It could be how much do I want to pay for the contracts that are involved.
I mean, they've been to the playoffs every year except for one under Matt LaFleur. And if, say, this year there's an injury to quarterback, God forbid, or they, run up with just bad injury luck, stuff that's outside of their control, and say they have a down year, and for Matt LaFleur, a down year is 8-9. That's what he did a couple of years ago. Now you go into next season, why would this even need to be a conversation? Because I think then the question would become, well, why are you giving him a contract extension now? Why didn't you just do it the previous year? And again, this is not like it's time sensitive. It's not like, well, they have to get it done. It's just interesting to hear him make the comment that I don't generally like people going into lame duck situations. I think, going into that final year, we kind of have an understanding where the relationship is at. Well, no, you should have an understanding where the relationship and the work is at based on the work that they've already done. Like they've done a hell of a job taking over in a difficult spot with a quarterback change. Part of Matt LaFleur has proven his worth that, hey, this isn't a lot of the discussion about LaFleur when he got the job was, well, can he do it without Aaron Rodgers? Okay, he has. I mean, have they won a Super Bowl? No, they haven't won a Super Bowl. But if you're grading on that scale, well, if you want your contract extension, you're going to have to win a Super Bowl. There's 31 dudes at the end of the year that are like, oh, I guess I'm not getting a contract extension. It feels like you're setting this up to be a bigger discussion next year when you could just squash it and get it done with now because he's already earned it.
Yeah, it just seems like that would be the simple, sensible way of approaching it. But you just never know the what and the why for certain things that take place. It could just be as simple as they want to wait. It could be very simple, like no hidden, hidden agendas or anything like that. No secret operations. It just they mean what they say. It could be they're trying to set a tone, and culture is something that is a really big deal, in all things that take place. So I don't know. Maybe they're setting a tone for the players. Don't approach us about extensions and stuff like that. We don't even do it for our GM and for our head coach. I don't really know what the purpose is. I just know you're right. They continue to get results. They have been considered to be a competitive team. It didn't end the way that they would have liked for it to end it last year.
No.
It seemed like there was a bit of a drop-off. But this team this year, with the personnel that they have, there really should be no reason why they're not right in the thick of it coming out of the NFC. And I mean, for a Super Bowl challenge to get to the Super Bowl. That's how good I think this Green Bay Packers team, can be going into this season. So, they have put together a really, really fine roster, and just maybe they're looking at it like, look at what you have on this roster, my guys. You need to show that what we got going on here with this personnel, you can drive this car. Now, what direction do you go in if you go away from LaFleur after he's done what he's done? It comes back to my original point, Jonas, that I'll lean into, is that puts more pressure on the decision makers who didn't make the move to keep the GM or to keep the head coach, because they were getting positive results.
That division's, in my mind, one of the more interesting in the NFL, just based on the fact that I have no idea really what to expect. Because I could see a world where Detroit runs it back because they are so talented. But then again, you lose both your coordinators. We know how this league works. Like, they had a lot of things land in their favor last year. You can't really expect that to happen 2 years in a row. Last year felt like their year. They could be set up for a down year. Minnesota is putting all their faith, as we laid out earlier this week, in J.J. McCarthy, who's in essence a rookie. He's never played before, and they feel like, yeah, that's why we just said no to Aaron Rodgers. That's why we're going this direction, because it was Jeremy Fowler reported they've got this 3-year Super Bowl plan. The Bears have added a bunch of talent to help Caleb Williams. Ben Johnson's a newcomer there, and then you've got the Packers, and it's almost like you could set any order, other than maybe the Bears winning the division and after that, but you could set any order in that division before the year, and I would buy into and could see those scenarios play out in the NFC North. It's just a really, really wild division to try and project going into next season.
It'll be a fun division to watch and to track. What direction is Minnesota, trending in? It's like you said, it's kind of hard to pinpoint what you think they'll be. I think we'll probably find out pretty quickly what type of team they'll look like. I wonder if we'll be able to get an idea of it in preseason. Probably really hard to do, but it'll be interesting to see how much they play McCarthy to get him reps, impactful reps before they get to the regular season. I think what Sam Darnold did this past season puts a lot of pressure on J.J. McCarthy to come out of the gate swinging big. And, people are going to want to know what that looks like. And when you look at the other teams, people are, like you mentioned, like there's some relative unknowns with Chicago and what they're going to do, but a lot of people are excited about the coaching hire that they made and what that could mean for the future. But again, the way Caleb Williams talked about how things were done and a lack of attention to him knowing what he needed to do, and the development that he was seeking wasn't there this past season. I think that puts a lot of pressure on him, and it puts a lot of pressure on this coaching staff, because if he doesn't have a good year, which he didn't have a bad year this year, I just think the expectations are so high that and then to see the comp and what Jaden Daniels did in his rookie year, and what, obviously Stroud did in his year prior to his rookie year, I think that people had high expectations for Caleb Williams to be something more than what he ended up being. But I don't think that he's not on schedule to be a superstar franchise quarterback in this league. But it is still a conversation to be had. So, and then you look at losing all of your coordinators in Detroit. What does that look like? But they get Hutchinson back, which is a big get. I think that they're still poised to have a good year. I think it's going to be pretty competitive. But as you mentioned, I do believe that this is a pivotal year for a team like Green Bay because of the amount of talent that they have on the team. And that's ultimately the reality that Matt LaFleur and Gutekunst is facing going into this season. You have no reason, with all of the questions surrounding your division, to come out on top of your division.
It's and you pointed this out before, but it bears repeating, because people probably take whatever the narrative or the optics are and run with that as opposed to the actual numbers. Caleb Williams didn't have a bad year. If you just go back and look through the numbers, you could argue he had a better year than Jordan Love. He had a better year than Jalen Hurts. Again, these are just numbers. We're just looking at numbers. But it's funny how, just based on the presentation of the chaos that was the Bears last year, how people just assume, oh, another number one pick who didn't pan out, or another high drafted quarterback who didn't pan out. It's like that's one to look at and go, all right, well, if he was able to do that and operate in that circus tent, what could he do potentially in this year when things are a little bit more buttoned up and there's actual protection on the offensive line and all that? It's funny when you bring that up, how people look at the storyline as opposed to the actual numbers and watch game by game to see what actually was going on last year in Chicago.
I just think it still raises the stakes that he blamed, and he took, make no mistake about it, Caleb Williams took a lot of the blame on his own shoulders. So let's not act as though he was brushing off the responsibility of taking the weight of why the team didn't do better than what it did. But he did raise some points that basically would lean towards the side of, why the hell would you do that when you have that type of a talent? Why would you allow for him to feel that way when he's your number one draft pick? And what people had such high expectations and high hopes for coming into it, it seems as though you didn't like your job very much as a head coach if that's how you let things get handled.
It's the Bears. Well, I mean, that's a simple explanation.
Which is crazy. It's just crazy to think at the pro level, and we talk about how hard guys fight to get coaching jobs and how many worthy prospects are out there. Then people get into the whole inclusion deal and stuff like that. There's all kinds of different conversations, but it is so competitive. There's only 32 of those positions out there. So to think that one of those 32, you have the number 1 overall draft pick, a former Heisman Trophy winner, a very, very gifted and talented player coming into your organization, and you left all of that on the table in terms of how you prepared him, how you trained him, and what his knowledge level of what it was going to look like and be like going into these games at the pro level. It's kind of a head scratcher.
Yeah.